like to imagine really hot chicks having diarrhea. So last week, I recorded a video for women about men and why they are struggling finding a boyfriend, finding a man for the most part, right? And I broke it down into tiers of attractive women versus average looking women versus ugly women because I felt like these different groups had slightly different problems or things that could potentially be holding them back. And I said I will be doing the follow-up about men today. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here in this video. You might have a rougher edit for this video today because I have less time to do the editing. I'm recording this literally today at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with plans to get this out to you at 5 o'clock. So bear with me here if it's a little bit rougher. And for the men, I kind of want to approach it more in a holistic manner because I do think whereas women are judged a lot more harshly on their appearance, this is not the case for men. Though, fellas, don't make the mistake about looks not mattering because they still play a role. And where looks play a role for men, it is regarding the amount of leeway women grant you once you approach them. For example, if you are a really handsome dude and you are an average looking dude, the difference really is about how much room you have to fuck up after the approach. If you're a handsome dude, you have a lot more room to mess up, to be a little bit clumsy in your approach. You are more likely to get invited to approach. The signs are clearer if you are an attractive dude of, hey, I can approach this woman. If you're average, and most men are average, that's the main difference. If you're attractive and if you're an average looking or slightly unattractive dude, is that you have more work to do if you're not one of these handsome dudes, right? And if you don't know if you fall into the category of handsome, you don't. Now, for the rest of you guys out there, why can't you find a woman? Why can't you find a girlfriend? Why can't you find a wife, right? And I haven't put as much thought into this as I did when I recorded the video for the women because I kind of know already what it is for most of you, right? Let's start here. Number one reason you don't have a woman is because you don't approach. I think it was Scott Galloway he's making around, and I have mixed feelings about Scott Galloway, but apparently somewhere like within the past, year or something, like 46% of men haven't approached a woman. It's some crazy number, right?
The statistics are insane. Like 45% of men 18 to 25 have never approached a woman in person.
Most of you dudes, or at least half of you dudes, don't approach women. And you can't get a girlfriend if you don't approach. We have to be the initiators. If you have anxiety, if you're an introvert, I get it. It makes this a particularly tall task. I understand it. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. This is not changing for the foreseeable future. Slightly more women are approaching men, slightly, there is kind of a growing small minority of women who actually approach guys and make the first move, but it's the exception. Most women, it doesn't matter if they have their own money. It doesn't matter if they don't need no man. A lot of women, most women still want to be approached. They still want the man to do the man shit, even though they don't want us to do all the other man shit, right? And so there's no way around that part. You have to approach. And I understand why many of you don't approach. I'm not a huge approacher by nature. Like, I'm not an extroverted person. I'm not that guy. But again, if you want to meet women, you kind of have to force yourself to do it, right? And the reason why you don't, well, there are multiple reasons, right? One reason you don't approach women is because you view yourself as physically unattractive. If you view yourself as physically unattractive, there's a high chance that you probably are physically unattractive, all right? I use me as an example all the time, right? I'm 6'2", 295. I have man boobs. They're small. They're not as big as some of y'all. Let me turn to the side a little bit. Hold on. All right? You see the man boobs, right? I got the titty right here, and I have a stomach. And so my body is just not built. It doesn't look good. And so if you think you have a bad body, you probably have a bad body. But the good news is there are things you can do to change your bad body. Working out, eating correctly, which is actually the big issue that people have, right? You're not going to outwork a bad diet, as they say. Trust me, I'm trying and it's not working. These are what you can do to correct your bad body. Now, your face, you're kind of stuck with your face. Of course, you can get plastic surgery and stuff, but that's really not that necessary. Like, where we are judged on our physical looks, I think having a good body increases the odds of you being successful with women more so than having a phenomenal face. If you feel unattractive, not sexy, for most men, it's your body, right? You're fat, you're overweight, or you're too thin. Also, the way you dress. I am a notoriously bad dresser. I don't think I've always been this way, but I never liked shopping. So never cared enough to put in the effort to shop. I'm trying to do better now, wearing nicer clothes now, buying clothes that actually fit my body. And I'm still a long way from being a decent dresser. But again, if you are self-conscious about the way that you look, and it's not your weight, then it's probably you don't think that you look good in the clothes that you have on, right? And this actually plays a big role because if you don't feel good about yourself, you're not going to feel confident when you approach a woman. You kind of have to feel good in the clothes that you're wearing and the body that you have for you to have the confidence to go up to a woman, because approaching, even when you feel good and you think you look pretty decent, is nerve-wracking for a lot of us in and of itself. So you don't want to compound that problem by, I have a bad body, I can't dress, right? You want to work on those things as much as possible so that you can feel good, and it will increase the success or successes of your approaches, right? So that's kind of one area here, right? The second reason many of you struggle with approaching, you don't know what to say. You struggle with how to just start a conversation. And I understand this. I am not a fan of what they call the cold approach, where you kind of just go up to a woman out the blue and just try to spit game, as they say. For most guys, that's not going to work. I am much more a fan of being in settings that encourage people to talk and then taking advantage of it. So going to a book club, right now, don't go to the book club in the first day, you start just, hitting on everybody. I'm not saying that, but you build conversation, you build rapport, then, in between or right before a book club meeting starts or right after, there's a chance you just, chop it up with somebody. Bars and hookah lounges but just functions, singles events, speed dating, things where it is expected and you are invited to talk to women. That's kind of where I would go. It'll help you pick the words to use. When you're cold approaching, you kind of have to start the fire from scratch. There's wood, start the fire. Versus when you're going to an event where it is expected or encouraged for you to have conversations with women, it's like having a fire starter, a fire lighter, right? Like, it's a lot easier to start a fire with a fire starter than it is just with sticks. When you are in these settings where it's expected to talk to women, just talk to them like you would a regular person. Yeah, you might find her attractive, you might find her appealing, and of course you want to get this to a relationship, or whether that's romantic, whether that's sexual, but it all starts from who are you as a person, and you have to engage her as a person, generally speaking. So if you're at the book club, talk to her about the book, then you go from the book to, okay, you like this particular book that we're having this book club about, but are you interested into this genre? Right? Are there other genres that you're interested in? And then, she'll respond, and then you go from that branch to, I mainly read nonfiction, but I've been trying to read more fiction to broaden my horizons. And then she might say, what caused you to do that? And you might say, well, I heard or read somewhere that reading fiction helps you with to be more of an empathetic person, which, by the way, that's actually true, right? And so what you're doing is you're monkey branching from topic, right? And then naturally, as you're driving this car, you're driving it towards a point where you can ask this woman, hey, I really enjoy talking to you. Is there a chance that I can, that maybe we can, hang out sometimes, or I can take you out? That's kind of where you want to drive this car towards. And so having those natural conversations, it's a lot easier when you don't have to think about where to start. You can just start kind of based off of, we're all here talking about this thing, or we're here for this reason to begin with. That's what I would recommend. Another reason why you may struggle approaching, in the previous video that I did towards women, I told the hot chicks that, hey, if you're struggling to be men, it might be because you're too attractive and men took themselves out of the race before it even begins. And to you dudes, I'm saying, a lot of you guys look at a woman and you say, oh, she's too hot for me, right? And chances are, in some cases, that is very true. But you also have to remember, if you have low self-esteem, you probably overestimate how attractive this woman is as well. And one tip that I want to give you is you kind of have to knock the woman off the pedestal that you put her on in your mind if you are one of those dudes that estimates how attractive women are, right? And one way to do this is to imagine this woman doing things that you find either extremely unattractive or just plain human, right? For example, I like to imagine really hot chicks having diarrhea. I do, right? Like in my mind, I create entire scenarios where a woman is on the toilet and she has diarrhea, but she ran out of toilet tissue in her house. She has extra toilet tissue, but it's in her closet in the other room. She has to, get out with the muddy butt to get the toilet tissue to wipe the rest of her ass, right? Now, why do I do this? It's to bring her down in my mind because I know I have a tendency to put women on pedestals. I just do. And so this helps me bring them to the proper level so that I can approach them. And then the last thing that keeps you dudes from approaching, you worry about rejection. And I want to explain kind of the mechanism behind worrying about rejection because you'll hear people say, oh, why are you worried about getting rejected? Who cares if you get, rejected or turned down? And I understand why people have that perspective and that opinion, but there are deep evolutionary reasons why we care about being rejected because all of us evolved from small hunter-gatherer societies, right? And I think the number is, back when we were hunter-gatherers, most of our tribes might have been like 200 people. That's large enough where you can get things done, but small enough where you can kind of still know people by their names, or maybe not their names, but you see the same people around the water hole, whatever, right? And so in these societies, your reputation was everything. How the other people in your tribe felt about what you did, what you said, was literally life and death. So it was important for you to not get a reputation amongst the female members of your tribe because if you were hoping to mate with one and reproduce, you had to maintain good standing, social standing, right? Being rejected or being turned down feels like a astronomical failure because it was a pretty big failure in a small hunter-gatherer society, depending on why the man was turned down. Were you turned down because, she had an eye on somebody else, or were you turned down because, word got around that you wouldn't be a good provider, you're violent, and now you have to watch your back wondering, oh my God, is my standing so low that my tribe, my community is going to try to get rid of me? And that actually happened. People got kicked out of tribes where they had to survive on their own. And in those times, to be ostracized and kicked out of your tribe meant certain death. So the fear that you have is coming from your evolutionary 20, 30,000 years ago brain, not the brain that you have now. So you're not crazy and you're not weak if you are afraid of rejection, right? But when you understand kind of the mechanisms behind certain things, I think anyway, it helps you to rationalize with your, your actual prefrontal cortex. Oh, okay, I know why this fear exists. And the fear in and of itself helped, my ancestors to be able to reproduce, to bring me here. But in this current context, it's not that relevant. You can do that once you understand, okay, this is kind of how the cookie crumbles. And to overcome that, you want to ask yourself this question. Let's assume you get rejected in the most embarrassing way possible. What actually changes about you? Let's say you go up to a pretty girl, and again, most women actually won't respond this way. Most women are like, oh my God, no thank you. I appreciate it, but I have a boyfriend, whatever, right? Most women are very nice when they turn down a man, in part because they worry about their physical safety, because some dudes will snap and start acting crazy, but because they're nice people. Again, let's pretend you approach a woman and she responds with, hey, you know what? I was wondering if I could get your phone number so that I can talk to you, or we can go on a date, whatever. And she responds with,
kiss my ass, you little dick faggot motherfucker.
Let's say she responds that way in public. Everyone's looking out like, ooh, right? It's embarrassing. But if you think about it, what about you changes? If you approach her respectfully, if you approached her in a nice manner, and that happened, your response should just be, oh, okay, my bad. I'm sorry. I just saw you. You're a beautiful woman, and I just wanted to, see if there was a possibility. But got you. Have a nice day, and you walk away. Anyone around you who watches that scenario plays out from start to finish, the only one that's viewed as the asshole is the woman, not you. Your reputation doesn't actually take a hit in this environment because of her reaction, right? And most people live in cities or towns. Even a small town is a lot bigger than the small tribes we grew up in. So you don't have to worry about, oh my God, if I approach this woman, I can't approach somebody else because they'll know that I approached her first, and so I lose out on this. But you don't have to worry about that. There is somebody else. There just is. And so if you can survive that scenario that I just laid out, and you also know that the likelihood of that scenario playing out is, one in what, 500,000, something like that. It'll help you realize, you know what? This fear, it's an evolutionary fear, but when I think about it, there's nothing to really be afraid of. And you'll go ahead and get rejected. And guess what? Most times that you approach, chances are you're going to get rejected. But again, like I said earlier, we are the approachers. Women have placed the expectation on us to approach. It doesn't matter how much they change. As of right now, they're not changing that standard. And so in the current climate, it's either approach or don't ever get a girlfriend, or don't get married, or don't even have sex. Now, of course, the sex part could be, resolved by, seeing some prostitutes, whatever. But if you want companionship, you have to pursue these things. You have to find a way past the fear of approaching. So that's the primary reason why most dudes can't find girlfriends or wives, is most of you don't approach, or too large of a number of you don't approach women. The other reason, you're poor. You don't have money. And I understand this point because, listen, I am poor for a New Yorker. I make a lot of money compared to some of y'all, but as for a New Yorker, I am poor. As men, when you don't have money, it means that you cannot really provide. And when you can't really provide, you will then ask yourself, okay, what good am I to somebody else if I can't really sustain myself to the degree that I want? If I can't live the life that I want to live, how can I be of any interest to a woman? And those thoughts will hit you in your mind, because I have those thoughts. I live alone. I can support myself, but I can't really do anything extra past, basic. Maybe every now and then I'll go, to a movie or whatever. I don't have a lot of, discretionary funding. Is it discretionary funds? Excess funds to just spend on stuff. I have enough money to date, but to splurge out? Nah, I don't. And if you are in my position, you can't really afford to take a woman on the type of dates that you might have thought that you might have been able to when you were younger, or you see other people doing. And that can become very, very self-defeating. But again, as the approachers, we have to be the ones to solve this problem. And there are really only a couple of ways to solve the problem of you don't have enough money. A, get some more money. If you feel like you don't make enough to be viewed as economically attractive enough for a woman to mate with or be with you, then you have to increase your economic standing. You can't just wallow in it. You have to figure out, okay, how can I make more money? And for some of you, that's going back to school. For other people, it's about maybe changing your profession. You might have the degrees, but your current field is not really where you are or where you need to be, right? For some of you, it's literally moving. You might have to move to another city, to another state where you're able to find a job that the gap between the cost of living and what you make is more in favor to you than it is where you are now, right? So for example, I live in New York City, and poor in New York City is anything underneath, I think, $50,000 or $40,000, right? But in other parts of the country, $40,000, $50,000 a year, that's like middle class. You might have to move to be viewed as more economically attractive. So that's one solution: make more money, or move to a location in where your money goes further, right? You might have to change the type of woman that you're approaching. There are some women out there who don't have the expectation that the man is the sole or even primary provider. Now, they might want the man to make more than them, but they have every expectation that they will be paying for bills. And in return, you'll be doing a half or close to half of the housework or the child ring, right? Like, it's not how it was 50 or 100 years ago. Yes, most women do still want a man that makes more than them. That is true. I'm not gonna lie to you about that. But most households today, both of the individuals have to work because of the current environment that we live in. And so you might have to look for women that have a different perspective where they are willing to date a man that makes less than ideal, but he might have other qualities to bring to the table, right? And so if you're the dude that wants, the Instagram model type, really, really attractive, that might be out the cards for you. You might have to let that go. And really, when you think about it, if you're looking for a partner, a girlfriend or a wife, yes, you want to be attracted to this person, right? However, does this person have to look like J-Lo or Rihanna or Beyonce? No. What you want is a woman of high moral standing, a woman who, if you want kids, is going to be a phenomenal mother to your children, and you can have a great relationship. Looks are important, but they are not the end-all, be-all, right? So that's why I'm going to end this video, because I really do think it's those two things. You're not approaching, and you're broke. Hopefully, my advice here will be helpful to a lot of you people, a lot of you dudes. Let me know how you feel down below in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think that there's another factor here for the male perspective? I don't really. Let me know down below. Until next time, deuces.